For Revolut, 2023 has been our third consecutive year of profitability. We made a whopping revenue of $2.2 billion, of which 500 million plus is profits.
Music.
Yes.
To our ears.
I don't come into office every day thinking, what am I going to do as the woman CEO of Revolut? I come into office thinking, what am I going to do as the CEO of Revolut India? And the more we get away from, I know there are few of us in number, and that's why the temptation to call out when there's a woman is there. And the core belief across the organization, like I said, is that if you hire people with a demonstrated track record of high performance, strong functional skills and domain expertise, and a problem-solving attitude overall, and then give them a charter and let them work on it. Being a founder and being a CEO are two different things.
Hi, I'm Rupali, and this is People First, a conversational series where we dive into how leaders from different ecosystems navigate people and team challenges. If you've been following People First, you've primarily seen me hosting founders from our ecosystem. However, my guest today is not a founder, but she's no less. With over 2 decades of experience with some of the marquee brands, and majority of it in financial services ecosystem like ICICI Bank, Kotak, Airtel Money, Lending Card. She's been at the helm of the financial revolution in India. My guest today is none other than Paroma Chatterjee, India CEO of Revolut. Paroma, welcome to the show. So excited to have you on the show.
Thanks a bunch, Rupali. I really appreciate your having me on your show.
No, excited. We've been talking about it for a while, and I'm so glad this finally happened.
I know. We've been speaking about the people aspect of the ecosystem for a long time, and I'm glad you're doing this, and thanks for having me here.
No, excited and looking forward to all the nuggets of wisdom that you're going to give to our audience today. Paroma, while we know about Revolut as a global brand, I would love to get a sense from you in terms of at what capacity, at what scale do you guys function today?
So for Revolut, 2023 has been our third consecutive year of profitability.
Okay.
We made a whopping revenue of $2.2 billion last year, of which 500 million plus is profits.
Music.
Yes.
To our ears.
Now, what has driven profitability in this fintech? Primarily two things. First is product expansion. From primarily being a payments company, we have successfully diversified into FX, into subscriptions, into wealth management, and even interest income. So diversifying our entire product and revenue basket has enabled us to clock significantly high revenues. And the second aspect has been geographical expansion. From being primarily a UK-first company, now we're clocking significant revenues from a sizable customer base across Western, Eastern, Southern, and Northern Europe for now. And coming into 2024, when we're having this conversation, India is a key part of Revolut's geographical expansion plans as well. So in India, we set up operations back in April 2021. And what we have spent this time doing in the last 3 years now is first getting licenses to operate in India. So we've got the AD2 license, which allows us to deal in Forex. We've got the PPI license, in principle authorization, which allows us to deal in domestic wallets. And on top of the AD2, we're actually the only fintech in India to have got a direct card issuance authorization, which means we don't have to do co-brand cards. We can do our own cards just like banks can. And we've also got a cross-border remittance authorization. So we've spent the time building this entire foundation in India. The second thing that we've set up in India is you need to localize tech stacks because India is fairly strict on data sovereignty and consumer data cannot go across the borders. So we've spent significant number of months in localizing Revolut's best-in-class tech stack to take care of Indian requirements over here. So that's the second foundational work that we have done in the last couple of years over here. And we are using this talent that we've built, this pool of highly talented product managers and engineers that we've got here initially to build for what is required for India. They've started building for the world and primarily for the rest of Asia Pacific.
Yes.
And then the quintessential global operations, we started supporting that with the kind of talent that's available in India as well to support the banking operations across Europe from India.
Oh.
So across the board to support the 40 million customers that we've got across the world and generating this $2 billion plus worth of revenue, we have touched 10,000 people world over across the 38 countries that we're present in. Of these 10,000, 4,200 are based right here
40%?
in India.
Yes.
40% of the workforce
And
today
within
is
3 years.
based out of India. Yes, April 2021, when I started this, in the first month, I had my first 6 people.
Yes.
So we were a 7-member team.
Yeah.
To today, when we're speaking, this is data as of June 2024, we're 4,200 people plus.
Amazing. Paroma, I have known you from your lending card days,
Yes.
right? Financial ecosystem is one of the most regulated, but you seem to have been maneuvering with class, at least from on the sidelines. That's how it shows, right?
I have, not just on the sidelines.
You seem to be doing it with a lot of ease, right? But still, taking over to build from scratch for a global brand and valued at what, if I'm not wrong, 40 billion?
Yes, the latest valuation
figures,
that has come out in the public domain is $40 billion.
Yeah.
Yes,
I like the fact that you said public domain. Yeah. But for a mammoth brand like Revolut to take up the 0 to 1 challenge in India, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision, right?
Not at all.
Yes. So my question to you would be, what part of your experience, 2 decades of experience, prepared you for this transition?
Okay, so first of all, when you say that it looks like I'm maneuvering it with ease, it's like duck paddling. The amount of paddling that goes under the water, nobody externally gets to see. And you just see how the duck or the swan is moving on top of the water. A CEO experience for a global company which is in its 1 to 10 or 10 to 100 stage, to do a 0 to 1 in a particular territory where it is at that point of time relatively unknown, nothing, quite honestly, really prepares you for it. If I were to go back to my experiences, as you said, which I think stood me in fairly good stead and gave me the confidence to pick up this role, I'll go back to my childhood. A lot of the things that are needed to navigate such a role effectively comes from certain values that are instilled right in your childhood. So I was born into a typical middle-class Bengali family in Calcutta, where some of the basic principles that were laid out around the importance of education and taking that seriously, the real importance of hard work and perseverance and not taking minor setbacks seriously, taking them in your stride and moving along, and the humongous importance of honesty and integrity are 3 things that were instilled very early on. And the other thing there was pursuit of happiness over wealth.
Okay.
Yes, so it was again instilled that do things that will make you happy and maybe the lives of certain people around a little happier because of what you did rather than what it was before you did that. And that has been at the back of my head as a cornerstone actually throughout my career. So if the companies that you spoke about, I ended up therefore making a lot of unconventional choices because of this. Starting from education, I actually, during my school years, my father was a senior official in a PSU, and I used to go to his office. And under the garb of doing homework, I would actually be listening in on his conversations. And I knew I wanted to do something where I make decisions that are going to be meaningful.
How old were you then?
This was school, my senior school, grade 9, 10, 11, 12. And therefore, I knew I wanted to go to B school. So I made the choice of doing a science degree in graduation rather than engineering because I felt that which had panned out to be, that it would get me to a B school in 3 years rather than engineering, which would get me to a B school in 4 years.
That's calculative, huh?
So I was fairly clear and focused as a child also. While not a front bencher, I ended up being one of the toppers. But I knew fairly early on that I wanted to do things which would be impactful and meaningful. And therefore, I made those choices, like getting to B school as quickly as I could. And after B school, likewise, while I had done my internships in established organizations like Procter & Gamble is where I did my internship, I took my placement in ICICI Bank that you spoke about. This was early years, early 2000s, when ICICI had just transformed from being Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation into an ICICI Bank. And that was a roll of the dice at that time. And there I got to be associated with some firsts, like launching the first co-brand cards in India. So ICICI gave me the grounding of banking knowledge and deep knowledge about cards. Then, yes, I could have continued in the same bank as a part of the talent pool that they had identified and have a long drawn-out career. After 4 years in ICICI, I decided to take the plunge and join another bank, which was a boutique bank at that point of time, Kotak Mahindra Bank, to be a part of the team to launch the cards business from scratch. So again, a comparatively unconventional choice. But what that gave me was I learned the ropes of how to launch a new business from scratch. And then again going back to launch that, started getting numbers, clocking numbers under the belt. Could have continued there in banking, in the banking sector overall, where I had earned my stripes by that time within the banking ecosystem. But in 2010, I again decided to take the plunge and get associated with the first initial signs of fintech. The fintech word wasn't even coined at that point of time, to join Airtel, to launch the first mobile digital wallet in India. And that was, again, a completely unconventional choice for a banker to move out from banking and join a telecom company to try and invent what digital mobile wallets are going to look like in this country. And I did that. And in the next 5 years that I spent at Airtel Money, I learned how to innovate. Innovate from something that didn't even exist. I mean, from whiteboard to reality and then scaling up. Did that for 5 years and then moved to Flipkart, which you didn't mention, but I joined Flipkart to lead the marketplace business for them. What Flipkart gave me was deep consumer understanding. So after having learned the ropes of banking and payments and how to launch a business from scratch, how to innovate, then came the layer of actually going deep into understanding what your consumer really needs, what they want, what are the need gaps. And then being able to tailor your offering to them and fill the gaps. And that's how after that lending card happened, to offer loans to SMEs, which was a highly underserved segment of the economy in terms of making working capital financing available to the vast majority of small and medium enterprises in the country. So, and the lending card stint obviously got me deep into learning the ropes of lending. In 2020, when Revolut was looking to enter India and they had the search on and they had reached out to a number of people, including myself, as the potential CEO to set this up, what I think I had was what I said, strong subject matter expertise across banking, cards, payments, wallets, and lending. So very horizontal subject matter expertise in the core domain of financial services. Second, I had the experience and knowledge of launching new businesses. And third, I had the orientation to innovate, push the boundaries of innovation, build things that did not exist. And I had formed the orientation of deep consumer understanding to be at the heart of it. So I think all of that kind of came together to make me confident that, yes, I would be better positioned to be able to live up to the challenges of bringing in this kind of a global company in its 0 to 1 journey in India. The other thing I did not speak about, but is equally important that you build in this kind of a journey, sounds a little more tactical, but equally important. The first one is an entire network of people and partners that you've built over the years. And I think that's really, really important to stay connected and know what different organizations do to be able to create win-win propositions and work collaboratively with the larger ecosystem. That's another thing that I had built over time. The second thing, which you also pointed out briefly when you were introducing, is a deep understanding and appreciation of regulations and the importance of compliance. If you're to become a rock star in a sport, you need to first really know the rules of the game. So I had gotten to know the rules of the game, which in financial services is regulations. And yes, built relationships at the regulator, whether it's at the RBI or the SEBI. And that's equally important. And last but not the least, as I had grown through my career, at the time when I was approached for the Revolut CEO role, I'd spent 17 years working. I had grown to lead larger and larger teams. There was a point in my life where I was leading a team larger than 2,000 employees, even at that stage, before coming to Revolut. And what that teaches you is also how to inspire and motivate a large number of people and drive the outcomes that you desire from them. And that's the third skill which I think I'd learned in that journey, which also stood me in good stead as we went about building out Revolut in India.
Just imagine, I think I do believe that you are a function of all the impacts that you create. It goes all the way to the childhood. But what stood out for me from your experience, Paroma, is the fact that you can't have outside impact or result if you don't take these bets, right? So you've always taken those
I keep
bets.
quoting this Robert Frost poem around the road not taken.
Yes.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both.
Yeah.
And be one traveler, long I stood, looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth.
Yeah.
Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, for it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had been about the same. And I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
We have a CEO and a poet too. Yeah.
I'm not the poet. I will give due credit to Robert Frost.
Very nostalgic.
Yes, that is my story. And I think for outsized results, you have to take outside bets and go down the less trodden path.
No, I represent a VC ecosystem. Ask us. Yeah. Coming back to this. Paroma, while you're building a 0 to 1, right, in early days, but Revolut still has a global brand on top. It's a founder-led company globally, right? So there is always this balancing, and in India tends to behave differently many a time, right? And more, So building 0 to 1, which is very India-focused, very customized to the India ecosystem, governance in India, and then trying to balance the global baseline, right? How did you navigate building teams around this?
One of the things that actually stands us in good stead is across the board, Revolut, across the 38 countries, every department, every role, we hire exceptionally high-performing individuals. Yeah, and that's something that we've continued to maintain in India as well. We have a rigorous minimum 4-round hiring process from the frontline executive. Okay, for the higher senior executives, we have further rounds, but we have extensive screening for people who have demonstrated high performance in their past stints. We have a functional skills round where we actually remove the years of experience as well as the companies that people have worked for and do a fairly grueling round to assess somebody's actual functional skills in the function that they represent. Once that's demonstrated, then they go through a problem solver round, where they're given a real-world business problem to solve as a case study on the interview call itself. And many a times, you'll find a lot of people maybe theoretically, functionally sound, but when thrown up a real-world business problem, they would actually struggle with what to do when thrown into that situation. So we actually look for the people who have problem-solving skills beyond their functional skills. And once we've identified that set of people, we have the last round for a majority of the people, which is a bar raiser round. And that's another philosophy ingrained in the company where we gauge for the values that we look for, and we look for somebody who's going to be better than 50% of the current organization. Which means, I've heard this from a lot of candidates in the past, that somebody who they considered themselves a better performer too in their previous organization, the other person cracked a Revolut interview and role 3 years ago, but they didn't manage today. That's because the bar is constantly getting raised. So the next time around, we're looking for people who would be better than 50% of the current Revolut organization. And that's how we constantly keep upskilling our team. And the core belief across the organization, like I said, is that if you hire people with a demonstrated track record of high performance, strong functional skills and domain expertise, and a problem-solving attitude overall, and then give them a charter and let them work on it, the results will come.
I'm going to hold on that thought because this is at the time of hiring, right? And when you look back over 3 years, right, what are some of these say I would like to use the word intrinsic and not only performance, right? What are these intrinsic that's common in all high performers?
Very, very good question, actually. And this is not just unique to Revolut, though I'll talk about these. There are 5 key intrinsic values that I've observed. And that's what we look for in our candidates as well right now, which stands a person in good stead and gives them a better chance of being able to have outcomes. The first one is a get it done orientation, right? Not just theory. Get out of your seat, do anything that it takes to get outcomes delivered without compromising on integrity. So a very strong get it done orientation.
Correct.
The second is what we term never settle orientation. So get it done and never settle sometimes might feel contradictory. Never settle means keep pushing the envelope, keep asking the questions, do not settle for the obvious solution, keep peeling the layers of the onion until you can do it better and better and better, right? Now, somebody's get it done orientation might go and say, okay, let's settle for the immediate solution and get it done. Somebody's never settle orientation may actually say that, okay, let's keep pushing the envelope, let's keep thinking for better and better solutions till the thing doesn't get done. So finding that right balance between a get it done and a never settle orientation to push for the most optimal outcome and then get it done is a combination, if you find it in a person or you inculcate that in yourself as a person, will stand you in good stead in terms of delivering exceptional outcomes.
Okay.
The third thing we look for is think deeper. It goes into the whole never settle and get it done as well. In your quest to never settle, a lot of people tend to think down one path itself, just push the thought process down one path till they've got somewhere and then go and say, okay, get it done. But think deep enough to know all the consequences of any decision you're making, any product that you're launching, any process change that you're implementing, anything, so that thinking deeper orientation, how deep does somebody go and how wide does somebody go in terms of their first principles thinking when they're trying to identify a solution to an opportunity or a problem. So the think deeper is the third intrinsic value of a person who goes deep into problems. The fourth is dream team orientation. Now, all of the first 3 that I spoke about, you'll see them over-indexed in individual contributors. They tend to think that they're strong, they're really knowledgeable, but they work best in a silo. We look for people who can operate well collaboratively in a team, and they hold not just themselves, but the ancillary team that they work with, everybody to a high bar. So another aspect of dream team, dream is equally important to team. So you work as a team, as well as try to make a dream by pushing yourself and everybody else around you to excel and make it a truly dream team. So that orientation of wanting to make a winning team with people is the fourth one. Intrinsic quality in the people that we see becoming, doing well. And last but not the least, we call that deliver wow. At the end of it, somebody who has the intrinsic motivation to want to deliver wow. Not just come in and want to do a job and get a salary or get a good performance appraisal, get a promotion. That's not what really works. What works is people who don't care about any of that. They don't really care about the paycheck at the end of the month beyond a point. They don't really care about whether they got the promotion or not, et cetera, or what their job title is. But people who have the intrinsic orientation that the work that I'm doing, is it really delivering wow to the consumer or my ecosystem? Is it really delivering wow for the company? So if people who have that motivation to shape their careers and lives around delivering wow for people is the fifth quality. So to summarize, get it done, never settle, think deeper, dream team, and deliver wow.
So people who are listening now knows how to not only survive but thrive in Revolut.
Not just in Revolut. Revolut, we laid these down as principles, but I think these are more life principles.
True.
If you actually inculcate those in yourself and in people around you, I think you'll shine wherever you are.
No, great. But tell me, Paroma, there is so much to learn from a global brand, but has there been something specific that the India team taught to the parent company?
A lot, actually.
Anything specific that you would like to highlight around talent especially?
The first one then I'd like to talk about is we actually rolled out a flagship scholarship in India, the Revolut Ira Scholarship,
I've heard
where we actually award this scholarship to top performing women from the top business schools. And what it has set as a benchmark, I think, for the ecosystem in India and in Revolut globally is, one, we know that talent representation in technology companies, in fintech companies, and in leadership is abysmally low. And that holds across the world and in India. We are not an exception in India, by the way, on this particular aspect. And I think this was our effort to drive the recognition that talented women, if you identify them early on and you support them, they can actually deliver disproportionate value for the companies. And I think by rolling out the scholarship and getting some bright, talented young women into the team that I'm personally very proud of, I think has also been an eye-opener for the industry and for Revolut. The gender diversity statistics in tech and fintech companies in India. I'm not going to quote that. Revolut globally is actually a little better, a notch better than average Indian tech companies. But that's also just above the 10% mark, by the way. We in Revolut India, the business team, we're actually 33% women, without compromising on talent. And that's the other important thing, not to lower your bar just to create diversity.
Yes, true.
Keeping the bar constant, but giving the support to enable the women who also clear that bar to be able to come in and feel supported enough to deliver.
The need, especially in tech ecosystem, is the need to be innovative, to be creative, think outside the box, do wild things, create wild products, right? But also, especially in financial fintech ecosystem, and rightly so, it's a very regulated ecosystem, right? So how do you create that balance as a CEO in your employees? They need to be innovative within the guardrails of compliance.
Yes, and that's a very, very important point you've raised, Rupali, because I've met enough people, like from founders to leadership to people on the team, who come in wanting to innovate, thinking that regulations are there to just hold them back. But that's not actually the reality. And that's kind of what I said when I mentioned, where if you want to become a rock star at a sport, you first need to understand the rules and why they're there, right? So first, I think what needs to be built is a knowledge of regulations and appreciation for regulations before even jumping to your product idea. So you know the baseline. You know where the court lies, you know where the boundary is. And to me, after spending all of these 2 decades plus in the industry, I actually appreciate regulations. There's a strong reason for it to be there. And the reason is to protect the interests of the country and its consumers. There has to be somebody who's watching out for that. We keep talking in the fintech ecosystem about the stringent AML, KYC norms that have been put in. But it's a reason, right?
Yeah.
Why do you need to go through Aadhaar, a video KYC verification, et cetera, Because you need to really know who is the consumer or the merchant that you're onboarding. If you just look at it that, by putting in these regulations, it's making it difficult to onboard a consumer and or a merchant. Yes, it might be making it difficult, but it is there for a reason. So that even by accident, you do not onboard a customer or a merchant who could potentially tomorrow turn out to be a terrorist for all you know.
Yeah.
You don't want
Correct.
blood on your hands.
Yeah.
Right? Now, once you've understood and appreciated the regulations, then go out there and play. Then play your own game. Then innovate within that. The same AML KYC example that I shared. Then go ahead and try and figure out how convenient and how simplest you can make that to get somebody's Aadhaar information and authenticate that real time, right? How to do video KYC seamlessly without drop-offs and being able to have the closest match in one shot, right? So definitely drive innovation, but drive innovation after understanding the regulations and the rules of the game. If I were to explain it in non-financial terms, it's like a child and their parent. It's like parents setting ground rules for you. The parent is doing that for your own safety and for your own good. Now, you can either be a rebellious teenager and go and say, my parents keep setting rules and why are those rules there, and spend your energies on figuring out how you can go around those rules and breaking them. Or you go and say, fine, the rules are there for a reason. I need to be back home by this time for a certain reason. Out of the way, you know it, you appreciate it. Then you figure out what you're going to do with your time. Go out there, enjoy yourself, innovate, make the most of it.
Okay,
Right?
that's it. That's a very nice analysis. A very simplistic way of saying.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah,
reason
very
I'm
nice.
saying
Yes.
this is because I know it is a
Yeah.
very, very common thought process
Correct.
around. So even in our company, a lot of the bright young talent coming in are coming in itching to do things. We actually bring them in, and initially, part of our induction, we make them go through a regulatory training program. Before you start thinking about what you're going to do on the product, understand the regulations. Then come up and do what you want to do.
Paroma, while you make everything look so seamless, I'm sure mistakes would have happened. I'm sure there is a lot of learning of what not to do, more so what to do, right? But still, for our listeners who potentially would want to start up tomorrow, right, or would want to, or move into such a role, or take up leadership roles, right? Some advice around what not to do, some of the mistakes that you've made, and you would advise them not to do that.
Well, I could just rattle off a lot of such examples because the thing is, nobody really teaches you how to be a CEO. People teach you to do different things through your work experience as well as your education. You could be a good marketeer, a good brand manager, etc., and grow to becoming a CMO. You could be a great engineer, become a lead engineer, etc., grow to becoming a CTO. Finance, likewise, there's a laid out path to a CFO, a CHRO, etc., etc. Da, 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 da. But the CEO's job, where everything is your job and nothing is not, and everybody is looking to you for answers or for the direction, whether it's the employees of your own company or whether it's the external ecosystem where everybody is looking to that individual to set the agenda, the pace, the direction. It's a job that nobody really prepares you for. So my advice to anybody who aspires for this, it sounds very glamorous, if you will, from the outside, but you need to be prepared to do everything and deal with everything if you genuinely want to do this role. So you shouldn't want this role just to have a checkbox in your career that you reached a certain point. You should do this role only if you want to be that as a person, as an individual. And coming to that, I mean, since you asked, a lot of people who are starting up, being a founder and being a CEO are two different things.
Can you go deeper in that?
Yes. Being a founder, you could have a certain product idea, a certain problem you have an innovative solution for, and you want to, or you've identified an opportunity and you want to set up a company around that. That's what being a founder is. Being a CEO is somebody who is not just that, but taking that idea forward is actually able to establish an organization for posterity, which is going to outlast a shorter term, is able to navigate external ecosystems and macroeconomic challenges. In a fintech ecosystem, being able to navigate regulations, government policies, whether it is a data protection bill, etc. Somebody who's able to galvanize external resources, whether it's in the form of partnerships with other organizations, etc., for their organization, and somebody who's able to attract people, build a brand for their organization, motivate, inspire people to deliver outcomes. I'm just giving you a few examples of what a CEO is expected to do, which goes beyond just the product idea and the product market fit and being able to build a solution. So for founders, they do need to make the transition to become a CEO. So they need to learn additional skills beyond the founding thought process in order to be a CEO. There are examples of founders who have done that effectively. And then it completely makes sense for the founder himself or herself to double up also as the CEO of the company. But it needs to be looked at as two different decision points and not a default decision that the founder becomes a CEO. And then as soon as you start looking at it as a different decision, you will learn the incremental skill sets that are required for a founder to be an effective CEO. And if it comes to a point where you realize that that is not something that you want to do, and you would be surprised if you talk to a number of founders on a one-on-one, not a public forum, a lot of the things that a CEO needs to do, a founder doesn't want to do.
They don't enjoy doing it.
They don't enjoy doing it. If you don't, it's really important to be honest with yourself and say, I am great at this. That's the idea and the product, and I love it. And I'm in my elements when I'm building it. But I don't want to deal with the rest of it. That's your time to actually accept that, yeah, let's get in a professional CEO to run it. And that combination can brilliantly work. And there are examples of that too. So that is one advice I would say to founders, to resist the temptation to by default thinking of yourself as a CEO. If you wish to essay both the roles, then think of it as two roles, double hatting, and actually learn the skills that are required to do it. And if you don't enjoy it, be honest and get in somebody else to do it. Now, coming back to me, one of the learnings for me has been when you're doing a founder and a CEO role, it's really, really important to align. Otherwise, there are also examples of founder-CEO clashes leading to the detriment of the organization.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what you set is what defines how the organization runs. So it's really important for the founder and the CEO to align their vision, their goals, their direction, and spend time thrashing that out so that you present a unified strategy for everybody down the line in your company, in your organization, as well as a unified roadmap for the rest of the ecosystem in terms of what you want for your organization. That has been one major learning. The second major learning, and this would be advice for people who wish to grow inorganically, and there would be times where it makes sense to acquire companies for certain reasons. Even at Revolut, we acquired Arvog Forex back in February 2022 for a particular license. When we did that, the two things to watch out for there is one, due diligence. Never undermine that in the rush or for the sake of acquiring a company. Even if at the nth minute you discover something that you're not happy with, don't be afraid to walk away. So that's one thing when you're doing inorganic acquisitions. Be really, really careful of that, because you're going to acquire the company, then everything to do with the company and its past is also yours from the time that you've acquired it. And the second, coming to the people aspect, to look at being able to integrate employees of the other organization seamlessly into yours. It's easier said than done, but requires a lot of personal thought, energy, etc. to go into unifying it. And that's the journey that we've done over 2022 to 2024 with this company that we've acquired to effectively make Arvog Forex into Revolut Forex today. So that's sort of the second thing to watch out for. And the third is, while I spoke about hiring, it's easy to, not easy, but it's still structured, and you can drive a process and a framework around hiring for both the skills that I spoke about as well as intrinsic values of people, which you can gauge through examples, conversation, demonstration. But there are two aspects which oftentimes you may not be able to realize through the interview process. And yes, if I admit it, I have made mistakes in hiring too. And the most common mistakes are twofold. One is at a leadership and one is down the line entry level. At a leadership level, sometimes there's a temptation to bring in really experienced people for their knowledge, because you believe that they don't have to come up a learning curve, they can just hit the road running. It definitely makes sense. But the thing to check for while bringing such people on is their motivation to join, their hunger, their motivation to unlearn a lot of things that they have learned in their past, look at each day anew, look at each company anew, look at each problem anew, to be able to integrate seamlessly into your company and take it forward. It doesn't always happen. The alignment of ambitions, particularly of senior experienced people with the ambitions of the company, is something necessarily to look out for before bringing in a leadership hire. That's one thing on leadership hiring. Second, down the line for youngsters, and I've made a few mistakes there as well, is you have a lot of bright young people who will want to come in for the sake of brand or for the sake of salary. I will still say it. And that is also difficult to gauge their motivation during that interview, especially when it comes to bright young people. But it is really, really important to gauge that, particularly when you're doing a startup at a 0 to 1. The things you need to look out for is doggedness, determination, grit, perseverance. And these are things which aren't easy to bring out in an interview setting. So the motivation of somebody to come into a 0 to 1 startup should not be the brand that they're working for or the compensation that you're giving them, whether in terms of cash or ESOPs or a promise of that growing into wealth in future, which is done by a lot of people, by the way, to attract talent. But it has to be somebody who buys into your vision, your idea, your thought process, and is willing to give you a few years of their life to make it happen along with you. I've made mistakes on both fronts and have lost people in a short span of time on both sides of the spectrum, and I've learned from that. And now I think we have a fairly stable team, a unit of people who are commonly united behind a single goal. So that's sort of the third advice I would give to any founder or CEO coming in to build an organization.
Great advice. Okay, the next few questions, Paroma, would be rapid fires.
I need a sip of tea, and do I get a hamper at the end of it?
I think that's a good idea. I think we can make a hamper. We can ask all our D2C founders. We can collect all the products of our D2C founders and make a hamper out of it. But for today, no hampers.
All right.
Okay.
So people should not be doing it for the incentive, but for the love of doing it.
For the love of doing it. Yes, I'm inspired by you. Okay. First CEO of India Revolut or first women CEO of India Revolut?
First CEO of Revolut India, hands down. If I were to elaborate, I abhor the term woman CEO. I don't come into office every day thinking, what am I going to do as the woman CEO of Revolut? I come into office thinking, what am I going to do as the CEO of Revolut India? And the more we get away from, I know there are a few of us in number, and that's why the temptation to call out when there's a woman is there. But the more we get away from bracketing it as women CEOs and put them as CEOs, is when you will truly do justice to people like us. I have been given awards for women CEO. There are a few that yes, I did accept earlier on, but now I derive no joy from getting Women CEO awards. I mean, if you want to award me for being a great CEO, not a great woman CEO.
I personally resonate, okay? Specialist or generalist?
That is a very good trick question. Personally, generalist.
Okay.
Reason being, specialists change over time. When I started my career, then specialists in banking knowledge, we're called business professionals, were very much in demand, the highest paid people, etc., etc. Then it cut over to today's day and age when tech specialists, data specialists are commanding a premium because they've specialized in that. But the point is that the specializations required keep evolving over time. And with AI and Gen AI coming in, there is more and more work that a lot of specialists do, which are getting taken away by bots having the ability to do that. So to me, personally, being a generalist who takes away the specialization requirement from themselves, but goes into genuine identification of consumer needs, solving problems, general problem-solving skills, then any problem that is thrown at you, you should be able to take that on and drive a solution, drive outcomes. And you will also know which specialist you require for what at any given point of time. So you're like an orchestra conductor, right? To be able to create an awesome symphony, if that's what you're looking to do, then generalist rather than specialist.
What's the best career advice you've ever got from someone?
Don't go after the jobs that are the most common, sound the most glamorous, or pay the most.
Do you also give it to others?
I definitely give it to everybody. I got this advice, like I said, early on from my family as well as early stages of my career. Like I said, B school, day zero placements are typical consulting, investment banking positions which pay the most. Could have done that. I did not. Because I wanted to be an operator, do things of my own, make a difference. So make decisions based on what you want to do rather than what people tell you is the most glamorous thing to do at any given point of time. And the other bit, I want to take that head on also around salary. Like, genuinely, a lot of success still happens to get defined with a paycheck. Right? What is the CTC? What is the wealth of somebody? But believe you me, I mean, I take this from someone who's been doing this for 2 decades plus. Money follows when you follow your heart and your dream. So that's one thing I would say. I mean, don't make the money the first thing and switch jobs for paychecks, etc. The money will eventually always, invariably follow.
Yeah, true. What's that one skill that you're working upon at this point in time?
One skill, I'm actually working on my sporting skills right now.
Okay.
Seriously.
What sports do you play?
So I play racket sports like tennis, badminton, and my son playing it. He's getting me back onto the courts, swimming, and I'm learning cycling for the first time. I didn't know how to cycle. I got straight to driving a car. I don't know why, but yeah. So I think it's important to focus on your health as well, along with the kind of demanding careers that we have with running companies, bringing up children, being there for aging parents, etc., etc. It's important to focus on health. And my way of becoming health conscious is sports.
Sports, good. As the CEO of Revolut, if you were given one chance and say you can exchange your role with anyone else, what would that be?
Exchange my role with someone else. I would not want to, first of all, change roles. I love my job. But if I had to, I'd probably pick swapping roles with the CEOs of any of the other territories.
Okay.
So I've spent the last 2 decades in the India ecosystem, operating, running companies here, knowing the laws of the land, regulations, these consumers. I think it might be interesting to swap roles, be the CEO of some other country, territory, learn about the consumers there, the regulations there, the products there, and become a little more global myself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paroma. This was so amazing. Thank you for sharing 2 decades of knowledge packed into a session. I'm sure a lot of our audience would be, would be amazed by the learning and great takeaways. But thank you so much for coming on the show and cheering for Revolut.
Thanks a lot for your wishes, and thank you for having me on the show.
If you've enjoyed listening into the podcast as much as I have enjoyed hosting Paroma, please subscribe to the Z47 podcast. If you have any recommendation on any other founder, entrepreneur, or leader that you'd like us to host, to send us a note and we would take it up. Thank you so much.
And if you enjoyed this particular conversation, download the Revolut app and get onto the Revolut India waitlist.
Amazing.